Hey there, I'm Andrew with Colorado's Reliably Electric. I'm here to show you a quick rundown of the Sol-Ark 12 kilowatt with Pikes batteries. Typical install from us if you're a customer of ours. And we'll go through all the settings, how we like to program it, and just to educate you as our customer of how the system works. And in case you can't get a hold of us, you got this video for a reference. So yeah, I'll first introduce our product. We do have three Pites batteries. Obviously, this is just an install to show you a tutorial, so please do not criticize our installation for, we are going to be tearing this down here shortly. So anyways, so over here we do have the Pites battery. Um, we are programmed, this is our master battery, and with these COM cords, they can talk to all these batteries at once and be in sync with each other essentially for charging, discharging, temperature control, and so forth. So they are talking to each other. They're smart batteries. So first I'll go over, this is our master. We have our dip switch 1 and our dip switch 5 up. That's how we can indicate this is our leader. And our leader has our Ethernet plugged into the CAN port, running to our inverter to where it then talks to the inverter. Over here, we'll move on to the Sol-Ark and go mostly through these display settings. And I'm gonna grab an umbrella so we can not have shadow and hopefully see this better. So in our inverter, this is our power flow. We do have our solar coming in. Signal on right now, it's calling for grid charge, and we'll go over that in the settings here shortly. Few things, and this is our battery percentage, so we can see solar coming in. If there was enough solar, we have minimal right now just for testing. You would see an arrow going into the battery. But right now, if I click our battery icon, um, this shows our solar, all of our power flow in as data points. So the reason we are not getting a whole lot of solar in is we only have 132 volts coming in from our solar. The minimum for Sol-Ark is 175. So that's why it's kind of bouncing around here. It's not adequate solar. If we designed a system for you, you probably have more than 4 panels installed. So here's our grid. We don't have any grid input on this inverter system. This is an off-grid tutorial, so grid power won't be present. If you do have a generator, we would put this in the grid input. The reason for having our system in the grid input is if the battery or inverter were ever to fail, the generator can pass through and run the loads directly, just to keep power to the home until we're able to service it. This is our inverter power, 120 volts, zero point 0.7 amps. It's really just drawing a little bit of power to operate the screen and communications with the battery and so forth. UPS, that's for uninterrupted power supply. It's more for when we go into off-grid on a grid-tied system. Our battery here, it's showing our voltage, our percentage, our temperature in Celsius. And then here we've got our generator input. If you had 2 generators on site, we would put the generator input here. If you're grid tied, we can also hook a generator in the input there. And then your temperature of the inverter, AC and DC side. So if we're going to hit escape, now we're going to go into our settings wheel here. I'll go through each one. We've got our basic setup here. Um, Here we have a beep for an alarm. I always like to keep those on. That way, if there's an issue, you hear a beep, the phone, you can always get notifications on your phone if you're set up on the app. Time, usually leave that 24-hour sync. You can do AM, PM if you choose to. I always do a 24-hour for us. Advanced settings. Again, nothing need to be done in here for off-grid. We do have grid peak shaving for our grid-tied customers. And a factory reset if needed, and paralleling if you've got more than one inverter. So next we will cover, system alarms. That's if an alarm were to arise. Next, I'll cover lithium info at battery. This shows us our battery communications. shows that we are talking to the batteries. If I were to unplug our battery communication here, and we hit back, now we hit info. Oh, give it a little time to realize that it doesn't have a battery, and we get an error sign. So we have no communications, no data. We plug this in, and now we have the battery communicating again. So it's one way to know that we're in closed loop with the battery, and the inverter is talking to the battery. All right, next, we'll go over battery setup. This is the most important setup. It retorted to battery voltage after I unplugged that cord. If we're in closed loop, oh, and no lead acid, and we're lithium, and they talk to Sol-Arks, we're battery percentage charge, BMS lithium 0, and activate battery, always selected. Our Mac charge, each battery is capable of about 100 amps. I typically will put it at 185. That is a lot of power. Every site is specific, so please refer to us, your installer, to set these up. If you are not our customer, please reference to your specific installer. Okay. I always like to hit OK and then come back in to make sure everything held appropriately. Next, we go to the charge tab. This is where we have start percentages triggered and amps charged. Our generator amps, it is all going to be specific on your generator size. I always like to start at 60 for testing on site. Again, if you are a customer, we have this all programmed. If you get a bigger generator or smaller one, this is how we adjust our amperage if it's being overloaded. Some customers have portables. This is where you're going to want to adjust the amps coming in. If the generator keeps getting overloaded, you're obviously going to want to lower it, sometimes start at 20 amps and work your way up until you find that perfect ground for that portable generator. We'll just put this at 60, so it's all the same. Float, absorb, equalize, that's all brought over by the battery. We don't equalize, so 30 days at 0 hours, we'll cancel that out. Monday at 10 a.m. for 10 minutes, that's to exercise the generator. We always program ours that way, just so we can, if there's an alarm on the generator, we get notified, and it's on a Monday, so we have most of the week to get out and get your generator repaired. So this is how we're always going to set up all of our systems. Gen Force here, if you click that, that will, if you have an automatic generator, that will automatically turn on your generator and charge your batteries until you unclick that. If you decide to click that remotely and forget for 2 days, your generator will run for 2 days until you deselect that. So next we'll go to the discharge tab. Our shutdown percentage, I always program to 15%. That's if the battery hits this 15%, it will shut down the inverter operations until it reaches our restart volt percentage, which I always like to configure to 40. So once it hits 40% on the battery, the inverter will turn back on. Our low battery, I always put at 30. And that's just a warning. That really doesn't have any effect of the inverter. Battery empty voltage for pipes, we are going to put at 49. Again, contact either manufacturer or your installer for these settings. BMS error stop, that's if we want the system to stop due to one of the batteries faulting out. I don't like to check that just in case one battery fails. Doesn't mean we got to shut down the whole system. Typically you can keep on going on 2 batteries or 4 until we get out there for maintenance and service to make sure it's operational again. Next, smart load. This is our gen input down here. This is where you can either input a generator, AC coupled system for grid tied, or a portable plug. Like I said, on our off-grid installs, we put our generator on grid input. So if this ever fails, we can pass through and still power the home with the generator. Here, you cannot. In our settings, you can use a generator as a load output and control smart loads. Very specific situation where you want to do that if you're trying to control a load based off battery percentage and solar power, 500 watts there. Wind turbines, we stay away from those since their technology is not there, so I will not go over that. And I did not hit save, so those settings probably all disappeared, but we went over them. Next, the limiter. Limited power to load. This is for off-grid only. Limited power to home is for grid tied, but we're off-grid, so we leave that. Other, gen connect to grid input. We have to select that if our generator is inputted there, and that will let the inverter know not to backfeed solar to our generator in an off-grid state. Okay, our last setup, UL this. We'll go to general standard and off-grid mode. That allows a generator to be connected to the grid input, and generator doesn't have the best power, so it will have a better tolerance for a generator to stay connected without issues. So, and other than that, these grid settings don't touch, don't mess with, we don't mess with at all unless you are in a country with very bad power stability, then we can program these, but if, as far as the USA, leave it alone. That should cover all of your systems. Again, it looks like we got enough voltage to bring in solar, so now you are seeing solar coming in, charging our battery, and so forth. So a little quick on this. These are your battery breakers, your grid breaker or generator, your gen or smart load breaker, and your load. So these are all off. In order to send power to your house, these need to be on. In order to send gen power to here, these need to be on, and so forth. So that should conclude the system of the overhaul of settings and your setup of your off-grid system.